I don't know if I have to introduce Perry really, because he has just been a star of the last few weeks. Was crowned Affineur of the Year. Fantastic competition. Let him show you the trophy.
There you go. Look at that. Eh?
Beautiful wooden truckle with the cheese iron in the top.
Yeah, this comes out so I can use it as well. You know, it's a purpose. You know, it's quite a posh place to put my cheese irons now. You know, in my Affineur of the Year trophy. But yeah, it's a lovely trophy. Yeah, really lovely.
Beautiful, beautiful wood, isn't it? And
yes.
So absolute congratulations. Amazing, amazing. You did a star job, and I think you're going to tell everybody about your training as an Affineur, as well as talk us through some of the techniques and taste a few of these amazing cheeses that arrived in the box. So very excited about that. So I'm going to hand over to you, Perry, and I'll monitor any questions in the chat. So please do ask any questions, because I'm sure you've got loads for Perry, and I'll bring in a few as well, I'm sure. Okay, so over to you. Tell us all about it. What makes
Thank you.
Love those maturing rooms as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. This has been my home, like pretty much last 2 years when COVID hit. We just kind of did more lives and kind of virtuals in here because it just kind of connected people with the cheese. So yeah, it's been a good development creating a mini studio in here, which has to be disassembled so quickly, you know. But yes, yeah. So Affineur of the Year, you know, and when we received the cheeses in, or the cheese in, I only got one. Some people had 2 cracks of the whip. It was 3 months old, and I don't know if you remember, Tracy, we all joined a virtual where Mary provided so much detail about the cheese in its current state. And essentially, I'm all about planning, and also trying to create an outcome, you know, writing down what I think that cheese can do. And based on Mary's information, you know, the starter culture that she was using, because I think she's using 3 different starter cultures, the acidity in the cheese, you know, I drew up essentially a hypothesis, which this is available online, by the way, or you know, the ones who people who got the box would have a piece of Priscilla in there. Sorry, the guys who are abroad, we don't ship abroad as of yet. Yeah, and you can view that online, this PDF. And essentially, it was just to try and put a stake in the ground right at the start what that cheese will be. So it was, for better for worse, to create our own very unique profile of Quick's cheddar in our maturing room, Rennet and Rind. You know, we wanted to reset the rind growth in the early days to allow more hostile takeover of our own biome, our own bacteria in this room, lose moisture at a consistent but steady rate, particularly in the initial stages, and apply different brushing techniques to impart.
Oh, we've lost you. There you go. You're back again.
Sorry about that. It was someone talking about my battery. To create a more diverse biome without the luxury of picking our own length of maturing time. Because the one thing that I've always learned is acidity. You know, when I was over in France training, the acidity is a good indicator for how long that cheese can go. And because Mary said it was a very high acidic cheese, but the conundrum I had was that I only had 12 months to do it. So I couldn't say this cheese is going to be 18, 22 months, whatever it might be. So the plan was, I think Mary holds her cheddars around about 8-9 degrees for a long period of time, was to lift that up. So essentially we went in pretty high early. So our humidity was up about 11 right at the start. And then we absolutely slammed down the humidity, right? So the idea was to reset that rind. And we did some different kind of brushing techniques over that course of the journey. So I'm going to show you one of those. We get straight actually into it. Why not, Tracy?
You left the cloth on, didn't you?
Yes. So left the cloth on, didn't remove it. I wanted to keep it very quintessentially, cheddar. And I also, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about ironing, the thing that's on top, breaking inches. I didn't break it into it until 24 hours before. I wanted to kind of, I wanted to test myself that, you know, looking at the rind every single day, taking those photos, measuring the weight, the moisture loss, and seeing if I could kind of give it the best, like almost like X-ray vision into the cheese and give it the best thing that it needs. And one of the key things we did when the cheese first come in, let me just grab the right brush. So this is Spark and Hoe, it's not Priscilla. It was a one-trick pony, Priscilla. And one of the techniques that we use when a cheese comes in and it's already got an aggressively formed rind on top is essentially we hold the brush like this and we do an aggressive back and forth like that. So the pressure that I'm applying is pretty hard, that's on the cheese. And what that does, this is, you know, there's no rule book for this as well. I wasn't taught this in France. It's just application over the last 4 years and different techniques that we've done. So we're disrupting the rind pretty massively, like trying to, imagine this is Priscilla, you know, came in 3 months, knock out as much biome from Mary's stores. So we're kind of pushing that microflora off at the back, which is just making sure, but also applying a decent amount of pressure to create microscopic scars across the cheese. And that will allow our biome to come into the cheese. And one of the biggest compliments that I had at the event was that, oh, it definitely tastes like one of your cheeses. You know, we've got this signature like kind of style to our cheeses, and that's because our biome's got in there. So that was quite an aggressive back and forth.
So at 3 months, though, the cheese must have been, it was probably still quite soft, wasn't it? That rind.
Do you know what? Ours was quite soft, but I think we were on the last journey for the cheese to arrive, the last. And, you know, if you push down on it, you've got, it's kind of minuscule, but you still had a bit of bounce that was in there on the rind. And you had a decent covering. It was more patchwork all kind of over it. But we just wanted to knock as much, you know, not harm the cheese, knock as much and give our best chance. And then after 2 months, we changed our brushing technique, which essentially went into, I call it like the massage. And this one is really time consuming. But essentially once, you know, the patches begin to form on the rind, and I'm like, that's our biome, our microflora is on the cheese. We employ this kind of massage technique, which is kind of small concentric circles. You know, we did this, we did it at least twice a week, but it sometimes went down to one, depending on what the cheese needs. And essentially what you're doing there is that the biome and the molds that are on top, you're displacing them and then resettling them to different areas. So where an aggressive brush, you know, if we're brushing for my up and away, so off the cheese, you're saying, hey, you're out kind of, you know, cheese. This one back and forth is a deep pressure pushing into there, and the massage is kind of light, so the pressure is less than what you've done before, and you're displacing that mold and getting an even covering over it. And then those who go and have a look on the PDF that we have online, you'll see after the 3rd month, it just went bam. You know, our biome was in there, and it was the rubbing that kind of happened, that little massaging technique, which takes a lot of time, but it makes a big difference to the cheese.
And what sort, is it a pure bristle brush?
Yes, yeah. So this is horse bristle, I believe, and there's loads of different brushes that you can get. Ones which I've got a number which are softer for more delicate rinds, but I found these just really work for me, really, which is really great, Yeah. So those different techniques allow you to create new biomes and new flavors. You know, obviously what we're doing is looking after the rind of the cheese, and that lets out little tendrils into the cheese, aids breakdown into the cheese, creates flavor, complex amino acids and flavors in the cheese. So that's why it's all very, very cool.
Okay, so we got a few questions. Let me just start. Okay, so Martin's asked, do you use brushes with natural bristles? But I'd already asked that for you. Is it important that they're natural bristles? It probably is, because they're probably a lot softer, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot softer, but the one thing that is more important than anything is that the bristles remain. You know, that's the key thing. So whenever we get new brushes in, they go through kind of it's like a deadpan kind of brush. So we're brushing like we're brushing a cheese just on and essentially an empty cylinder, and try and lift off any of those that may be there. And if it's too aggressive, after the first time, then we would discount it and won't use it, because that would just impact the cheese. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Claire is asking, do you brush from one cheese to the next? So possibly transferring biome from one cheese to another.
That would be a decision that we would make based on the cheese. So that it's difficult to say that, that would we change brush. So every type of cheese that we have in here, style, whatever it may be, has a different brush if we're brushing. But we have made decisions, like with our sheep's milk cheeses a lot, we put them together and brush them a lot together, because some of them have these like amazing molds that are on there, and we want to push that across. So it depends on what mold's growing, if we want that transference or if we don't. So it's flexible. So unfortunately, that doesn't particularly answer the hard question. But yeah, it's flexible depending on what outcomes we want to do. Do we want to transfer molds onto other cheeses, or are we happy and we're just maintaining?
Okay, where is your PDF of the thing on the website? I'm on the website now. Somebody's asking.
Yeah, so if you go into the news blog section on Affineur of the Year, I'm not sure if it's the latest one or the second one down. If you go on all the way to the footer, go on news, and then click on our blog. It's one of those, and then you can click on it, and it will fire up. It will say a link, the full breakdown. It's got more data in there that's on there, because we wanted to be really transparent about what we did with the cheese. So it's got links to.
I'll try and find that now, Judith, and put the link up. So Patrick is asking, do you ever clean the brush, or is it like your master stock?
Oh, that's interesting. We have to. Every now and again, we have to. They get quite aggressively caked up. This brush particular has been through a lot of work today. I've been doing a lot of mite brushing. We don't want mite, too much. We got to harvest it and make sure that it's at a good level, that it gardens. I think that's what Mary Quick called it, the gardens of the cheese. So this will go into a sterilizer after I'm finished, and so will the other mite brushes that I was using today, to knock that all out and reset. There's some brushes which are kind of delicate, so mainly our sheep's cheese brushes that are used over and over again, because it seems like that flora that I love and creates great flavor, visually striking cheeses, really loves being used over and over again.
Brilliant. That's all the questions for now. So can we try a little bit of cheese that has brushing technique?
Yes. Yeah, so everyone we'll try some Priscilla, right? What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of Priscilla here.
Little bit of Priscilla. Yeah, so
a little she was a big beauty, a big beauty.
Yeah,
that was the joy of the event for those who got there. It was like paparazzi when all the competitors took the cloth off their cheeses and then cut into these 27-kilo truckles, and it was like the excitement was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, we are being a bit cheese geeky, but it was exciting because
and I got pushed to the side table because I had Brindisa next to me they smothered their cheese in paprika, who didn't follow. So this, like quite bitter, spicy, whatever it may be, dust. So I sat next to them, and obviously Priscilla, I love her intensely, and all this dust is coming over. So I was like, I'm getting out of here with Priscilla and cut at the side. And but it was phenomenal to see so many different styles, all different. And it's a competition. I mean, it's my industry, it's my craft, so I may be biased, but to see the cheese tastes so different, it just proves that it's a great idea and a great concept and a great industry. I think it was amazing, really. Yeah.
It was.
So we're trying Priscilla then.
Priscilla.
Yeah. So obviously she's been cut open for about sort of 4 weeks now. So she's lost a little bit of her sparkle, but still quite an amazing cheese.
Gorgeous. She's like no bluing or anything, just very clean.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing is how gradual it is from nose to rind, that
Yes.
maturing that's come in. I always think about that kind of stark contrast from the sort of here to here, just shows a little bit too much speed, but it's so gradual, it's barely noticeable on the outside. And then we can see really the hard work of our massage brushing, creating that really thin rind that's on there, which is great. Yeah,
It's
and on the
almost,
note,
yeah, a slight quixy nose to it. On, it's very, very slight, that kind of horseradishy,
yeah.
you know, farmyard on the rind that you get with Quicks, but the flavour is nothing like. It's
Well, in my kind of hypothesis, the one area that I thought that we would maybe falter, it would be the aroma. I thought that it would be quite underwhelming considering the techniques that I'm using, and it's pretty knockout. Like when I cracked into it for the first time, plunged that out and smelt it, I was like, the aroma's amazing, and I'm just really happy with it. It's very quintessentially Quicks and cheddar, but with like more complexity in the kind of savory area, and a lot of grass and a lot of butter, which is great. And then,
I mean, that was the comments that came back from the judges, was the complexity in Priscilla, that you'd created, some for a 12-month aged cheese. Well, I think we were at 14 months by the end of the competition, weren't we? By the finals, because we moved them 2 months. But for that, you had created that complexity.
I mean, I haven't tried Priscilla in a couple of weeks, to be honest, and I love to. I'm always humble about what I do, but that's pretty knockout. Like it's that, and I think Susan Sturman, who trained me when I was in France, summed it up well. It's quite a complex, sophisticated cheese for a sophisticated palate, and yeah, Priscilla won the People's Choice Award as well. So we had the technical blind judging by the judges, Patrick Morgan, all great people from our industry. And then there was a vote, 150 people in the room, had scorecards, went around, tried all the cheeses, and we won that as well. And that for me was better than winning in a weird way, because it proves a lot of people think what I'm doing doesn't understand the kind of some people think that what I'm doing is I'm just going to charge extra money and I'm doing nothing really. So to see that on a technical level it was the best, and then the People's Choice, people going around tasting it thinking it's the best, just shows affinage works. There's no more arguments about that whatsoever. That translation just works, but beautiful.
So we're getting a few more questions. This is fantastic. Okay. So another one from Claire. Will there ever be another Priscilla? Now that's a big question. There's never another Priscilla. Priscilla was your love.
Well, there will never be another Priscilla, I suppose. But there may be Priscilla's daughters, and I can see Patrick's in the chat from Quicks, and I keep on trying to twist their arm to see if they'll let me do some others. Just a small limited batch rub of Priscilla's, doing the same techniques that we did before, limited edition.
Definitely should. I asked Perry before when we were just in the practice session, and I said, so because I haven't caught up with you properly since the event, what effect has winning Affineur of the Year had on your cheese sales and on the business? So maybe you can tell us now.
Yeah, so online completely shot through the roof, which is amazing, and then everyone came back again. That's the one thing for me. So our online sales went up pretty massively. People were talking about us, people were checking out, seeing the value of the box that everyone has at home. They're very generous, large portions.
I've said to you before, it's a good portions. Amazing.
And everything's so considered in what we do, and it was good to see people come back as well. That's always a tick in the box. So it's nice to see, you know, those initial orders and then those orders again, and people signing up for the subscription. In terms of our wholesale business, it's just gone mad. Everyone wants us on their menus now. They want to say, you know, they're doing Rennet and Rind cheese. They're doing so much, you know, and it's kind of put what we do a little bit on the map, and so proud to put Cambridge like on the map for doing maturing cheese. So it's been phenomenal, and we've created we've actually got an 8-week waiting list for wholesale customers now, which has weirdly created more demand. But that's been phenomenal for us. You know, there's only so much cheese I can mature, and we don't want to hurt our integrity. You know, we'd always be organic, always mature as much as we can, but never compromise on quality whatsoever. So there's an 8-week waiting list. So it's all great news.
Bravo. So a few more questions. Sorry, they're coming in thick.
That's all right. This is great.
So Richard's saying, did he miss something? But why was the cheese named Priscilla?
Yeah, so I keep on getting asked this question. I name all my cheeses. It's a weird thing that I do. Who was it? Nigel Barden asked me about it the other day, actually. Why do I name the cheese? I couldn't tell him, but then I started to run through. Currently, we've got a Don in the room, you know, and that Don, I think somewhere in the back of my brain was based on Don Draper. You know, he talks the talk, but he does not walk the walk. He's a bit of a show off. And then we had a Kevin, and that was a cheese with a stubborn mold on. So it's a stroppy Kevin and Perry. But I don't think about this, honestly. I don't go, what name? And when, I don't know why, it was quite quickly I started to call her Priscilla. And there's no rhyme or reason. She just felt like Priscilla. There's no reason behind that. And it's not related. It's just a nice name for a cheese, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a great name. Nobody's used it before. So I think we should definitely have some Priscilla babies, please.
Yes, definitely.
The other thing that was happening with you should show us some more techniques, and I'll we've got some, and people who don't know, but Patrick Spinazzi is in the chat, and Spinazza,
a legend,
who is from Quick's Cheddar, and it was his idea to create Affineur of the Year competition, and obviously the Academy of Cheese helped run it and give it some momentum. And Patrick is asking, what are your plans for next year? But I think we'll leave that till the end.
I'm not telling you. I'm not. You know, that's
because there are lots of different and some different changes for next year. So.
I can run through some ideas I have, and just, I suppose, how different my approach will be this time round, you know. So
and it's different cheeses. So let's talk about that at the end. Martin Rudin is asking if you'd had longer with Priscilla, and if you didn't have to derobe her for the competition, would you have cut her open, matured her for longer, or would have you stuck with the 12, 14 months?
That's very difficult to say.
If someone's wanting to buy it, you would cut it and sell it.
Well, I think I probably wouldn't be up near the heights of 12 degrees and that aggressive humidity we had. So the plan would be completely different. So it's hard to say, depending on that cheese that came in, if I had longer. But Priscilla was perfect just at the right time. You know, that was a perfect level for that cheese and where it should be. So no, I wouldn't have gone longer. But if I'd started again and there was different temperatures and things like that, then maybe I would have gone a bit lower and slower.
Okay, cool. We're getting, Meredith is asking, were the temperature drops in January and February intentional or due to weather conditions?
Yeah, so this was interesting, and this is like why, you know, the data is very real and open. You know, we're a small independent business. Omicron was very, very scary, and sales dropped off quite a bit for us in terms of wholesale. And at that point, you know, we were still getting through the cheese. We still had the Christmas boxes and the Christmas trade at home. but we were very, very worried about a lot of cheese. So we had to pull the, I think, Tracy, we had a conversation about it potentially being delayed as well, the competition, didn't we?
We
as
did.
well?
We did knock it back from. It was going to be February, wasn't it?
Yeah. So essentially utilizing temperature, keeping that humidity consistent, and just slowing, putting the bacteria that's in the cheese to sleep a little bit and slowing that down. But cheese is, it's alive. You've got to react to it, and that's part of the beauty of Affineur of the Year, is that that cheese that some of you are tasting now spent 12 months with me through COVID trials and tribulations, and I think that's what makes it quite beautiful, that the data is very honest and open. And that's what happened at that time. We were scared about another delay, scared about cheese, wholesale completely drying up and being in the position that we was 2 years ago. So that wasn't intentional, but it's a kind of external pressure that we have to consider as affineurs.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just
No
still
worries.
trying to find the PDF, but I think what we might have to do is get it afterwards, because I can't see it either.
Yeah, if you just
Don't
search in the box up top, Affineur of the Year, go through it, and there's a link in the text. But what we'll move on to next, let's move on to some biofilms, because I've really enjoyed seeing how this changed. So this is Berkswell, which some of you will have in your box. It's a sheep's milk cheese, and it's one of my favorite cheeses. And we haven't had it in the maturing rooms for some time, because they've been behind on production and things like that. And you can see two stark differences between these cheeses. I hope you can see. The one on the right hasn't got any sort of bright coloured molds on. The one on the left has it depends what way around that is. This one here has sporandema on it, this bright red one. And this did look like this, like a month ago. And what we decided to do, like, rather than turning the cheese every week, to get that kind of, even covering of mold that's on the top, the nutrients running, because there's still moisture in the cheese running from the top to the bottom, we decided to sit them on our planks and just leave them. And what that does, see, I saved the plank for you guys today. So I don't know if you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but that is sporandema.
We can.
Yeah, so these are like, obviously, wood is so important when you're maturing cheese. It's porous. It naturally regulates humidity in the room. If you imagine a metal, it would just sit, and that's not very good, But also, when the humidity drops in the room, we've still got a bit of give in it, because the wood is now saturated in as much moisture that it can possibly take. So yeah, these burst out there. So we left them, this way down, for a considerable amount of weeks, and really like lift up the like really create that bacteria that's on there, create a biofilm. So when you lift these cheeses up, they make a little click. It's very satisfying, where they've kind of come together, and you lift them up, they make a little click. And then when I saw these, I was like, that's great, because now I've got Berkswell boards again. It was absent in the room, so I couldn't create these boards. So essentially, I've just so now we can turn these, and then that mold will propagate. And one, it creates great flavour, sporandema, but also it looks so beautiful and so much more interesting. The colour there, and so that's biofilms on cheese, Tracy.
It's the piece I've got is absolutely amazing. It's got some of the orange on, Perry. It's very, very lovely. But you were telling me, or you were saying on your Instagram posts, that you have been looking after this cheese. It came in quite young, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it came in quite young.
Sheep's milk, isn't it? From not a million miles away from Martin Moyden, where I used to live in Shropshire, and it's I'm going to have a little taste.
Yeah, it was very placid at the start, which is good, because cheese fluctuates, it changes, and then you see on your tasting notes that you have that this was the recommended first cheese, but we wanted to talk about other subjects, so we've thrown that out the window. So it's gathered more complexity, it's dried out quicker than anticipated, so it's got more chew to it, which is great, and it's got that nice kind of gentle, lemoniness to it, a little bit of nut that's in there. And then because the molds are on the outside now quite an aggressive way, you're getting more of that barnyard sheep kind of vibe to it, which is good for our first cheese to
the nose,
have.
it's very milky, it's very lactic, and then getting towards the rind.
I'll tell you what I'll do actually while we're tasting this one. Maybe I'll just try this one fresh. So for those who don't know, this is maybe I should use this for the first time. The cheese iron from that. That would be a good thing to do that with you, Tracy. So so a cheese iron is obviously a T shape. You plunge that into the cheese and it takes the core out of the cheese without harming the cheese and doing too much to it, rather than cracking the whole thing open. So I'm going to use it for the first time on a Berkswell actually. So plunge that in there. Give it a little twist that's there, so you make sure that it's properly loose. Oh, I've lost the cheese. I've lost Priscilla. She's down. I'm running out of space.
Roll. It's all right. 3 second.
There you go. We'll pull that out. There you go. So you can see what it looks like, and this gives me an indication on what the cheese is going to do. So the back of the blade. Let me try and.
Yeah.
It looks wet there, but actually this is quite dry. This is quite dry, and the breakdown is pretty good. From nose to rind, there's a little bit of a disjoint there, but that's okay. And it's very fresh, lemony, milky, like you said, that kind of lactic edge, Tracy, that you were talking about. And then essentially, I'll pop out a little bit. This is the best tool we have in here. One, because it feeds me throughout the day if I need a little snack. And two, obviously, I don't harm the cheese. Now, this has come on quite massively in comparison to the ones that you have in your box. So this, I'm trying fresh from the maturing room. This is a slightly different batch to you guys. So the tasting was different, but this is so hazelnutty. This version, rather than one that you have in your box, which I'm so happy with. It's like a walnut in terms of nuttiness. I've never had that in this cheese, so that's amazing. What do you think of it, Tracy?
It's after the. Sorry.
After
the multi-lactic, it's a little bit caramelized, so you've got that sort of slight toffee, but very subtle, very gentle caramelized milk toffee flavor. Delicious.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning. And I like you say, it's slightly drier, but that's what Berkswell is, isn't it? It goes like that. It's sheep's milk. It's very clean.
Every now and again, you get that the curd knits together perfectly, and you get that. It's almost like a sheen, and it's kind of almost like, I always describe it as almost like marble to touch. But it's a lovely cheese, and really.
I have a question on your sporumdina.
Yeah.
Does it come from the wooden board, or your room, or the cheese? That's
so
a good question.
This in particular, it was embedded in the cheese. We essentially cultivated it and mass produced it. So I'll try and find a very young one that I have down here. This one. Yeah. So these here, look, you can see the little tiny specks that you have on there.
Yeah. So
essentially, all I'm saying is, right, guys, I'm going to give you the best conditions to propagate and get on my boards. And I gave you that condition, then boom, you've got the biofilm on the board, and then that will create transference to other cheeses. It's a very similar thing that we do with our Rachels. So we always have a mother cheese with our Rachels. So this is Chrysosporium.
Oh, yeah, that's Rachel is famous for that one, isn't it?
Yeah, but we always leave one cheese. And then brush the other cheeses with it. So we really try and aggressively, White Lake do an amazing job. So this one, which is on the far left, which is our first one, we will always, so in terms of that transference we were talking about earlier, that's what we'll do to try and push that up. And we're going to try and cultivate. Sorry, go ahead.
You wouldn't want either of those molds going on to other cheeses, though, would you?
I think so. I think they'd be good on there.
Okay.
Yeah, you
wouldn't worry about it then?
No, not at all. Not at all with sheep milk cheeses. And these here. So so we've got Spenwood here, which is slightly more washed that we do in them. But all those, they're all sheep milk cheeses. All those molds, the Sporandema, the Chrysosporium, is great on sheep's milk cheeses. Now I want to procreate that as much as possible, create a diverse flavor that's in here, and keep on reusing the boards in the same area to get that flavor. So yeah, we don't mind cross-contamination when it comes to those molds. But if we're talking about something like Mucor, you know, the filament molds, not the flat ones. There's flat molds which kind of spread out and they're kind of asexual, but then you've got filament molds which are like trees with seeds on the end, and those are like spores. They will spread, but they've also got quite a bitter little spritz to them. So we don't want too much of that around on the cheese. So that's where we do the, you know, try and zone things out and stop that cross-contamination.
Yeah, that's a question that Franco is asking. Hi, Franco.
Hey, Franco.
Do you have other types of cheeses in that room, and how do you handle cross-contamination of mold? But is it in the same room, or is it?
No, so we have 3 rooms in total. Hopefully, should have some more sometime soon. And I was always taught to be really fearful of cross-contamination, which is quite understandable. But it's not as a big problem as I thought it was when I first started learning affinage. You know, if you're looking after your cheese, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, this is the amazing thing about affinage. We're always learning. You know, Mons have done an amazing work at, you know, being the industry leaders in educating this kind of area. But I hear about so many different techniques from cheesemakers, some really wild stuff that they're doing, and everyone has their own style and own characteristics. And yeah, so there's times where I'll put a cheese in which really feels like it shouldn't be in that area, in that mold, in that condition. And the outcome's been phenomenal. So it's about learning, knowing your cheeses, see how they work together and how they operate. So yeah,
and so lots and lots of instinct, really, and well, and you probably more as your experience grows, you can become more confident. And
yeah, and it's notes, like always writing notes on what you did. If you took a different direction, a different action, have that as backup. You know, get as many notes as possible. You know, I think we're going to be moving to an RF situation where each of our cheeses, a bit like Westcombe, has a chip. So I can write all my notes on what I'm doing on that individual cheese, you know, by our RFID scanner, which will be a real nice thing to have, that people could scan their phone at home or in a deli and get all that information of what I've done within its journey that it's been on. But yeah, notes, write it down. If you feel like you're looking at a cheese and you're like, oh, this has happened before, you've always got your notes to flip back in and say, this is what happened with this batch, and this is what I did wrong, this is what I did right. And then you get that layer and layer of information, and hopefully you'll be better off.
Fantastic. Is that something that when you did your affinage course at Mons, is that something that they taught you there, that, you know, and Sue Sturman, who's a fantastic patron of the Academy of Cheese as well, and she was one of your tutors there, and so did they, was that endorsed a lot to keep those notes? Is that something that you learned there, or is it something that
it was? I would say it was suggested, but it was not suggested. It was highly recommended. But more of the Mons course was about the techniques, the morging, and different techniques you use, washing, different hands, and although they were saying notes records, they've got like a state-of-the-art system, you know, which has cost millions of pounds, and it happens quite automatically, I think, all the notes for them, where we're quite manual here because we're essentially a micro affineur, well, definitely a micro affineur compared to Mons. But that means more hands on cheese. Yeah, more hands on cheese, which is important. So, but
what about Morge then? Morge, moving on to that.
So should we do some washing? Have you got any other questions there, or?
I think we're all right. There's
okay, cool.
Franco's asked, no, it is Franco. He's saying eventually you may get some unwanted yeast in that room that may cause orange spots on the rinds. How would you handle it? Wash it off or let it be as an aesthetic feature?
Well, it depends. It depends what derivative that we're talking about. Like, so there's so I have a kind of a mini lab in the corner, which is microscopes. I also work with the Cambridge colleges. It depends what strain that is. It depends that, you know, I'm talking to Blake at the moment from
At the Trafalgar.
St Helena.
Oh, yeah,
Great
St.
Bowden.
Jude.
Yeah,
Yes.
St Jude. Yeah. And yeah, he's making a kind of reblochon kind of style cheese, and the cheese is great. And he was asking my advice, what I could do or whatever, and I said, no, it's great. Just keep on doing what you're doing and let that kind of great milk from the Montbéliard change. But I said, I don't quite like the mold that goes on there. So what I would try is an alcohol rub, you know, like to try and really knock that out and allow, when it goes to delis and it being wrapped, to try and really kick back that mold. So it's a complicated question to ask, really, because it depends on what strain that mold is and how well. What I would do is try and use selective pressures to limit that. And we've seen that in tons of scenarios where we've changed the environment that mold is in to really push it back, which has a detrimental effect on the cheese sometimes, but not one where it would be, you know, a horrible cheese, I suppose.
Good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that's in.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So,
Talk about variables in cheese to cheese and batch to batch and milk to milk, and then you're creating all of this variables within the maturing rooms, which is fun. It's fantastic, amazing something. Okay, so what we got now?
This is a cheese that I've just started working on. I've got some videos on my Instagram. If you're not following Rennet and Rind, go to Rennet and Rind, you know, on Instagram. I do all my stuff on there. It's easy for me to post, so I do everything on there. So I've been washing these today, so I've left one for you. So this is like a continental style cooked hard cheese made by Juliana down in Wiltshire. We're getting these in when they're about a month old, and we're just starting our affinage journey with it. The interesting thing about this cheese is that we're washing it in a local rapeseed oil, which I've never matured a cheese in rapeseed oil. And I just wanted to show you the technique. So we tried loads of different techniques. So we tried brushing, sponging, and we tried cheesecloth. But this seems to be the best one, which is just a high quality, you know, serviette that you'd find in a very posh restaurant, very thick cotton. And I essentially dip it into the cheese and make sure that you've got everything off there. And then we're just doing small circles. So once again, you know, micro kind of stuff going on. Oh, I'm getting it in here. Sorry, this isn't my usual workstation. And essentially we're just trying. The thing that's incredible about this cheese, which I've never matured or gone and made cheese with anyone, the smell is incredible. And I can't do smell-o-vision with you guys, but it's like apricot sherbet. As you kind of, it is so unusual. And
what's
then what
the name of the cheese?
This is Bybrook. So my full batches, so I've got quite a lot of cheeses that I'm maturing, I think will be ready in about 2 months, but I've still got some that might be available online. But these are literally flying out for us. And then we'll do the other side, but I'm not going to attempt that because I'm getting very messy and I should have worn gloves. And it's
I love the sherbet, the idea of the apricot sherbet.
Do you know, it's like heaven when you're washing those and you're washing sort of, you know, 30 to 40 cheeses and you just get that and the room just smells so sweet. It's a phenomenal cheese. It really is. It's a great cheese. And what it's done is it's created that aggressive, thick rind on the outside. So almost like a plasticoat kind of covering.
It looked quite plasticoated, but it's not. No?
No, it's not. No. That's the rapeseed oil hardening up on there. So we're keeping that cheese. Juliana had a fantastic batch over Christmas where she was holding them at 12 degrees. So we're keeping them at 12. Once again, extremely high humidity. What I'm doing at the moment, I'm fanning them a lot, so trying to dry the surface out quicker. And I'm now ceasing, as of today, washing them, and then I'll go into an aggressive brush and try and change that on there. But the smell, honestly, Tracy, it's amazing.
I don't know that cheese. That's quite a new cheese from Juliana, is it?
do you know, it's an old cheese, but she didn't have much demand for it. And I love working with Juliana. She's remarkable. The Old Cheese Room, go check them out. It's a remarkable farm, and Juliana's such a fantastic cheesemaker. And just
Lipiat is a very unusual cheese, isn't it? That how they've managed, that's a feat of technology.
Yeah, and Baronet, you know, the kind of British Robuchon has always been a staple here. But we just love working. I spoke to Juliana this morning. We love working with her, and she's all about quality and just such a pleasure to deal with. And yeah, they were kind of surprising this locally, and I was like, go on, kind of let me have a bit. And that's the great thing about affinage. You know, Juliana's only got a limited amount of space, and I'm taking these cheeses off her, and I'm going to pay her for them, and she can get on with making more cheeses.
More cheese.
You know,
so
yeah, and it's such a good reciprocal thing. She's excited to try mine when they're completed and see what I've done with them, and we're learning together. You know, it's fantastic.
Brilliant. I was very excited to get Mayfield in the box, actually. I love Mayfield. Oh my word. Oh, is that
well, a lot of people, that's what I was kind of referring to. So this is, do you want me to grab one? I'll quickly grab one. I'll keep on talking to you.
For those that are studying Academy of Cheese and go onto your learning road, there's a picture of Mayfield being dunked by Arthur Alsop, who makes Mayfield. It's in the learning road. There's a picture of Arthur brining the cheeses, and they just bob around, don't they? It's like incredible.
So it's a big old cheese, and Arthur, you know, this is a thing where, you know, this is kind of about cheesemongering, really. You know, he has changed his milk that he's using. I'll stay steady on that. His milk and his herd, and Mayfield has always been a very pleasant cheese, right? You know, it's mild, easygoing, moorish, nutty, and he's switched up the herd. We had some problems maturing it. We had a few burst cheese. It became very holy, and those holes, for those who don't know, is bacteria in the cheese that's breathing out and creating those severes in the cheese. Those kind of holes, and they could get a bit too aggressive, and they were getting very aggressive and bursting the tops of the cheese. We're talking about accidents. This is one of my accidents. So this is the same thing. The rind is too dry, essentially. And
what cheese is that?
This is Ashcombe. I kind of had a mistake with two cheeses. I washed them in the wrong rind solution when I was doing a little bit of experimenting, and the rind dried out too quickly and caused it to crack. But you can get those bursts in the top of the cheese. So we're getting that for a while with Arthur, but we're trying to get there, working with him. He's amazing. I like working with him. And we're there now.
Phenomenal. It tastes absolutely. That's not quite a bit before, but it tastes, and this aroma, because like you said before, it was very mild and very sweet and very nutty. You know, his original cheeses. Last time I tasted them,
it's one. The texture is amazing. You know, that kind of instant on the tongue, mouth dissipate type thing, with a slight bit of clagginess, which makes it really kind of satisfying. That nuttiness, but that zing, it's kind of like a sweet zing of nuttiness that kind of comes through. And then what I love about it is the salt balance is exceptional. It does what it needs to do at the start, like that nutty kind of journey. It lifts it up, that savory element that's in there. And then it goes, I'm just going to give you a little hit of salt, and it gives you a little hit of salt. It's one of those cheeses, which this might be a moment in time. This might be Mayfield never tasting like Mayfield. It does. There's as an affineur, there's always a profile of cheese that you're trying to model your cheese on, trying to get it there. And this is one of them. And this is great cheese making, you know, nothing to do with me, actually, nothing.
Okay, so you haven't had this for a long time. This is
No, this is just replicating Arthur's conditions that he has, so we can store them.
But he's got a new milk, new herd then, because I was reading that on the notes that you sent through.
Yeah, so he moved farm to a different area, and that's why it's just created this really rich, different, diverse flavour. Now we will do, affinage. It's the word to refine. There's also, it's not so much about getting a cheese young and maturing all the way through. Refine, everyone thinks refine flavour and things like that. Refining is like refining for a customer. So like one of the things that we do with the Mayfield is that before they're dispatched, we give them kind of an aggressive wash on the outside. We try and really liven up that rind on the outside, create bright, beautiful colours. And we refine that in a kind of visual way for our customers as well. So I think everyone thinks affinage, everyone can do affinage, every deli can do affinage. Essentially affinage is refinement of that cheese, in my mind, to a particular customer. And there's some of the refinements that you can do by just making it look more prettier. So when someone eats it, they're excited to eat it. So that's one of the things. But that's pure cheesemaker, good at what he does.
Fantastic. So we're slowly running out of time. So what are there any other techniques you wanted to show us this evening? I think Franco was asking any reason in particular about choosing linseed oil, but I think he misheard you because it was rapeseed oil, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah,
So
I'm using
rapeseed oil, which is rape is the local, fluorescent yellow. It has been at the moment, hasn't it?
Yeah, it takes a great colour. It's just the locality of it. I know the guys at Farrington mellow yellow pretty well, so it seemed like a good idea. And it seemed very quintessentially British to do rapeseed oil. But I'm taking a look at I'm working with someone down in Bournemouth at the moment at doing ash tree oil. And just trying different techniques of oil. The last one that I wanted to show you, which we briefly touched on, which these have been done today, but this is the difference between flat molds, flat molds, which kind of branch out like these kind of flat molds, and then the filament molds. So this is called Morton, and it's a remarkable cheese made by David Jowett down in Gloucestershire, I believe. Gloucestershire,
yeah.
And this has little filament molds on it. So essentially, like I said, you've got these kind of little trees with seeds on the end. And when I was in France and we were doing Saint-Nectaire and things like that, there was a very specific technique that they taught us over there with a cloth, burying that seed back into the cheese. And I've always wanted to do it here. So any cheese where I see that kind of that growing, I'd kind of give it a go. And Morton's just taken to it really well. So I haven't got a spare cloth, but essentially you're using the palm of your fist to drive that mold back into the cheese. So when it begins to bloom out, I think it's not showing up on the camera, but you might be out.
It's not so fluffy at the moment, is it?
Yes, but it was the other day. It was this morning. So essentially we're patting down that fluffiness and inserting it back into the cheese. What that does, it creates, so this is a British tom, essentially. It really pushes up that mushroomy, earthy flavour that's in there and makes it very quintessentially tom. I'm in love with doing this cheese, and that's another technique that we use. And I'm trying to think of other techniques, but would you
traditionally use a cloth to push back the seed, or would you use your hands?
I'd use a cloth. I can't run it. Yeah, sorry. I'd use a cloth.
Demoing. You've been like a little pixie down there.
I got everything. So I'd use the oil cloth again. Sorry, this has been used today as well. And I essentially create like a palm. You kind of create a knot that's in there, and then you drive that mold in. And there's a specific kind of like wave technique to it almost. So because you don't want to apply too much pressure and rub them off, but you kind of just want to disrupt them and embed. And like that, we've had some good results with that. So it's just nice to be able to.
They are just stunning, aren't they, when they grow, and it's like this little, it's like a mole or something. It's just like a little furry animal.
I mean, Claire, I saw that comment. She's absolutely bang on. There's this little spritzy kind of note that's in there. That's, you've got this earthy mushroom, then into cream, dairy, lactic, and then this little bitter spritz, which is amazing because it can't be described in any other way.
So Perry let me into a secret today when we were chatting on the WhatsApp, and I let him know my cheese had arrived. That he's now treating his cheeses to cheese podcasts. So for Food FM, Jenny Linford's A Slice of Cheese, which is absolutely brilliant.
Great.
She has had some amazing cheese people on that podcast. And then the Westcombe, Sam Wilkins,
Westcombe Project.
Westcombe Project. You've been playing that to the cheeses, so and letting them listen to people talk and discuss cheese. Do you think that's going to make a difference to the flavours?
One, it makes me happier, being immersed in cheese and then being blasted with cheese, But yeah, they're great podcasts. Everyone should check it. Slice of Cheese and Solomon Sam. Check out his podcast. They're a lot of fun.
But you were saying if you're happy and you're showing the cheese love, you think it performs better. Yeah.
So I listened to this really weird thing about a year and a half, 2 years ago, which was Heston Blumenthal, and he essentially got 3 pots of white rice. Yeah. One he shouted at, treated it quite nice, nasty. One he had loads of love, and then one he completely neglected. And they all turned different colours at different times and things like that. And that's always stuck with me. So although we've got speakers in here, so I play music, for some reason I play classical, but I think that's just trying to get into some trope that I'm definitely not. Just because if anyone's around and I'm looking like a Hannibal Lecter of cheese,
that is hilarious. That is hilarious. That's really poncy.
Yes, it 100% is. But I do kind of get my flow with it. But then I pop in my earpods. The great thing, I bought these earpods about a year ago. Sorry. Earpod plug here, Tracy, and it means I can work and mature at the same time. So I have so many customers that give me a call and get transferred to me while I'm in the maturing room, which is such an people get so excited. And now we've graduated to kind of FaceTime. So people are FaceTiming me when I'm in the room. I was talking to a great chef called Alex Rushmer, Vanderlal in Cambridge Mill Road, fantastic chef. And I was just going through the cheeses that he wanted with him, walking around the rooms while I was doing it. Cool. So I play music in there, but the biggest part of it is that I do actually love my cheeses. I'm looking at every one of them. I can pinpoint a cheese in these rooms right now that I'm concerned about, and things that are going on with every single cheese. And that's part of being a micro affineur, having your hands on every cheese, knowing where that cheese is going. And, that's never going to change for us. We're going to grow up, organically, and always know what's going on with our cheese. And hopefully everyone who had a box really enjoyed their boxes and hopefully can see the difference and the love and care that goes into them.
It's you're doing an absolutely amazing job. There's just a couple of 2 last questions. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I've got all night. It's not a problem.
Patrick was asking, are your other cheeses affected by the mites?
No, we don't. This is very unusual. We don't see the big issues that kind of cheddar makers have with mites. It might be that we do we're very, not saying, but they've got hundreds of cheeses. We're very thorough with our mite management. There's a specific kind of grain. It's like a grain training. So essentially, if you rub your hand, I mean, that weirdly the spark and hoe that we had up earlier. Weirdly, now I brush that too much. Because I brushed them today and I wanted to show you. But as I feel that it's kind of waxy, and it sticks together. What I'm looking for is a very, very thin grain, almost like sawdust, and I don't want it in volume. So we think that's a big part of cheese, and actually has a really good effect, that level. So so actually getting it to that granular kind of thin granular level is important. And we've always been able to maintain the mite in our rooms. We've done a few experiments with mite, pull them off and put them next to other cheeses, see what happens. But we've been quite in control of a lot of them, So yes, thank you, Patrick.
Well done, thank you. Well, it's amazing. We're getting lots of lovely comments here, Perry, and I will send you those on the chat, the text chat. But and lots of people, fantastic compliments about the cheese in the box, and how it's been nurtured and looked after. So yeah, just amazing. You're an absolute star. I would like to say that Perry is one of our training partners. So if you haven't trained with us yet, I've been trying to do a few polls, and there's a little survey at the end. Are you back in the class? You've only done classroom courses, haven't you?
Yeah, we didn't go virtual. We wanted it more in person too. If you did want to come to us, it's the dates are up on our website. If you click on the Academy of Cheese, we make cheese in the mornings. We make a young fresh cheese. We get to spend an hour in the maturing rooms. We're brushing cheeses, turn some cheeses, and obviously learn history, taste cheeses, and just a great day, to be fair. So
that's the level 1. So you make a little bit of cheese at level 1. That's brilliant, fantastic.
Yeah,
the academy courses are all the same, so it's all the same syllabus, but all the training partners deliver the courses in a different way. So that is like a real bonus, that they get to come in the maturing rooms, that they can make a little bit of cheese and then do the cheese tasting with you afterwards, and learn the post-make and the structured approach to tasting. So thank you for that.
That's all right. And I also make you lunch, which is always fun to watch. So.
Oh my word. I would want nice beef burgers with this Mayfield melted over the top, because it looks like it should be.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be a sleazy lunch. So thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's joined tonight. If you do get a chance just to do, it's only a 3-question survey at the end. It's just to see who studied with us and how you like to study, because the classroom courses are back slowly, but some people are preferring virtual, and some people just want to do it at their own pace as self-study. But this has been amazing. It's been an insight for me as well. So thank you, Perry.
I'm glad you enjoyed. You're perfectly welcome. Sorry, I'm eating cheese.
No, it's fine.
Of course. But yeah, thanks for joining, and thanks for all the questions and all the lovely responses.
Amazing question.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm on Instagram, so at Rennet and Rind. That's where you can find me. Comment on our posts. Like, I love interacting with people about cheese, so please do. It makes my day.
We hadn't noticed that at all. Well, superstar, and congratulations again on winning Affineur with Priscilla. Get some little Priscilla babies coming back, please, as well.
Yes, Patrick.
Oh,
yes,
we never said
do.
Affineur of the year next year. So there's going to be 4 cheeses. A smaller Quicks cheddar, so just an 8-kilo cheddar, a Stilton, so Cropwell Bishop Stilton, Baron by God, the Fen Farm 3-kilo brie, and the 4th cheese will be Solstice from White Lake Cheese.
Oh, yes.
So the competitors are going to have at least 24 cheeses to mature all at once, because they're only babies. So that's going to be fun.
I'm going to be very busy.
Watch this space. I know you may have to have that new room before then. And hopefully we're going to, I think Sue, who was your tutor at Mons when you did your affinage course over in France, she's going to be one of the judges next year.
Oh,
so
that's a great
we're
idea.
very excited to be taking it forward. But thank you, everybody. And
thank you.
Happy Jubilee. Enjoy.
Happy Jubilee. Enjoy your bank holiday weekend, the weather and everything. And eat plenty of cheese, be jolly, and spend some lovely time with your family or friends.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You sound like the Queen now.
I did. That was like the Queen's speech, wasn't it? A bit, actually. I don't know where I went with that. Maybe I should do that yearly in the maturing room, the kind of Queen's speech. Yes.
All right.
Cool.
Superb. Take care, mate. Cheers.
Yeah. See you, Tracy. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.